welcome back to the Phoenix Podcast. I'm Brandon McDevitt.
I'm Tiffany Pfeiffer.
And I'm Savannah Gouch. Today we're going to be talking about the theory of relativity with our guest, Emma.
Hello.
Get right into
Hey.
it. So, can you give us like a brief, or maybe not so brief, because it is a really big theory on the theory of relativity.
Sure. So, Einstein's theory of relativity, basically, it encompasses two things, the theory of special relativity and general relativity, which talks about space-time as an entity and the relativity of things like light. And I don't fully understand it. It's a very confusing thing. But it's really interesting, and I hope to understand it fully someday. But basically, it talks about so with general relativity, it is how space-time bends and distorts. So it includes things like gravitational waves and I'm not sure how to word it. So it includes things like gravitational waves, light deflection, things like that move time in various ways.
Okay. And what about special relativity?
So special relativity is talking about the relativeness of light to everything else. So how we normally compare speed, or the speed of things, the velocity, is relative to an object. However, with space, in places that don't have gravity, or light, especially in places that don't have gravity, and just in general, the speed remains constant, no matter what.
Okay.
And that's kind of the weird thing, is that it constantly remains same no matter what it's relative to.
That is insane.
Big boy stuff.
So, this is just a question. Do they work cohesively? Like, one wouldn't work without the other? Or is it just like two different ideas? Or are they like the same idea, but just two different sections, basically?
They're encompassed in the whole, just relativity as a whole, but then they diverge, but they still kind of revolve around each other in a way where, you have the general, which is, everything about space-time, and then you have the special, which talks more about the light and the more relative part of things.
Okay. That's insane, man. I know Albert Einstein came up with these back then. I know it's not, I say back then thinking, it's a long time ago, but even then, we didn't have a powerful internet to search, calculations and stuff.
No, we
I mean?
didn't.
So that's incredible that we're still using this idea today,
Yeah, it's really amazing because,
yeah,
every single one of his theories have proven true to this day, which is so crazy. You would never guess that something made 100 years ago would be applicable to today. He basically predicted what a black hole would look like, and he was correct. And we only figured out what a black hole actually looks like last year.
Yeah. I remember the countdown days until we saw the released picture of the black hole, and it was just a small little blur.
Yeah, it's my desktop picture. It's great.
That's awesome.
I've seen recently more updated versions of that same black hole, and it's really cool.
They actually had made I wonder if I can find it, but I don't think I can, but they had made a prediction of what it would look like, and the one that the actual picture looks like a blurry version of the one that they had predicted. And it was just mind blowing how accurate they were able to be with that.
Right. Okay. Wow. It's just what do you think about like the production of movies and how, you know, in Interstellar they had actually a whole engine to simulate what a black hole would look like. Do you think like, this is a great thing to have where you're like, well, we should try to stick more to fact or something like that?
I've actually never seen Interstellar. I keep meaning to watch it. I just haven't gotten around to it. But
Fantastic.
in sci-fi movies as a whole, they're usually, some of them have stayed pretty accurate. However, a lot seem to diverge into like this crazy, really futuristic, possibly not even possible ideas. And I think that's okay as long as people realize that they're not always accurate, and that you should take it, you should always take it with a grain of salt, because like you never know.
I think that many movies and theaters and the cinema, Hollywood and stuff take things to a very far extreme and sometimes beyond realistic extreme.
Yeah.
I personally, as a viewer, love that. Like, that's something that, like, really excites me. Like, although it may never happen, I like the idea of a ray gun existing. Like, that would be so cool if that was reality. And I feel like it almost creates kind of like a goal for us to work towards.
Exactly.
Which is kind of wild.
They inspire. I think the widespreadness of sci-fi movies and stuff like that, I think that's going to inspire the next generation of, physicists and astronomers who actually like want to work towards that. And I think that we can look at the like things in other movies and we can be like, yeah, we want to do that. Like in Star Trek, yeah, I want to go fly around across the universe. Like we can work towards doing that.
Yeah, or even like moving as fast. Many of these movies have inspired people to see if we can create a shuttle or a engine that can go light speed, can make a vehicle go light speed.
Something I don't fully know, like,
not saying that it will happen. There's possibility with our generation or even future generations possibly coming up to with how quickly our technology is progressing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that could one day, assuming humanity still exists in the next several thousand years, maybe that could happen. One thing that I had read about, I don't fully know, so I mean, don't take everything I say as fact, but I think I had read somewhere that as things start to approach light speed, they actually end up getting like heavier, and they end up slowing down enough that they can't really eventually reach light speed. So I think you could get very close to light speed. However, I don't think you'd actually ever be able to reach light speed.
Yeah.
It's a crazy thought, for just traveling at that speed is
crazy to think in general. I know the Scott Kelly, who went to the International Space Station, he was actually considered older than his twin brother because they're traveling at two different speeds. So light speed is going to change a bunch of things because, you're traveling in two different speeds,
Yeah. And that kind of ties back into how everything is relative. Like time, that's relative. We just made that up.
Right.
Yeah. I know Savannah talks about it all the time, how humans were the ones creating time, because we used to just watch the sun. Ancient Egyptians had the pole and
sundial. Yeah.
I was actually having this conversation with my family a few nights ago about how, like, the only reason we created time is to measure things like speed. Like physics, that exists because we like needed something to measure, or time exists because we needed something to measure. And so in physics, like, you use time as one of your main variables. And without that, we wouldn't be able to measure many things. So time has helped us. However, it's always relative.
Mhm.
Let me get this right. You had a conversation with your family about time.
That's basically like a daily thing.
Yeah, I've been at Emma's house so much. I'm pretty much a part of their family in some ways.
Yeah, that's our daily dinner conversation is about time and black
Time,
holes and
space.
whatever.
I would be lucky if I can talk about the latest piece of technology.
Then again, my dad and I will have very intellectual conversations all the time.
My parents are like, "What is a 3D printer? What are we buying you? What is it again? What?"
This is
Yeah. Actually, so with a dad, he's always taught me to debate with people because one, you'll get to see another viewpoint.
Yeah,
Even if
that's a
you
very
don't fully
important
believe
thing.
it, you don't have to agree with what they're saying, but with debating, at least you get to learn about their point of view and why they think that way. Because they have, if they actually truly believe what they're saying, they're gonna have facts behind it, and you get to learn.
If you can understand what the other side thinks, you can find a medium space where we can end up getting along. Like, if we can all just, find a
Agree to
equal
disagree.
footing. Yeah. That's one thing that a lot of people need to know is, how to debate and how to convey your views and be able to, understand the other side so then you can eventually work together and compromise and things like that.
Do you think this trying to debate is a big factor in the science field? Because the science, like politics and that, like science, you have legitimate facts that you can use. You know what I mean? So do you think that's going to be harder to debate or easier to debate?
There's a lot of there's a lot of debate that goes on with scientists.
I know exactly. I'm pretty sure Aaron can back me up, but I know there's like two main core types of scientists, and one are creationists, and others are atheists, and they each have, in my opinion, each has very legitimate facts that can back up both sides. We just don't know for sure.
Well,
Because
also,
we still have so much more to discover, and that can explain because science is supposed to help us better understand our Earth and everything that goes on around us.
Yeah, that's the point of science, is to better understand the world around us. And even in between, different physicists and theoretical physicists and astrophysicists and just people in any science community, they'll always have people that disagree and have to kind of work on. That's the whole point of theories, is that you test it to find out whether you were right or not. And so people constantly debate about whether theories are viable or not. And so yeah, there's definitely a debate that goes on there, I think.
And you also have to think about funding within researchers that hire scientists to do work for them, and they have to make that argument for, oh, we need this much money for this, and this is why. And there's that kind of debate that is brought. Also, think about I don't know if you I shouldn't, Brandon, I'll save you. I won't mention Space Force, but think about the United States new thing, Space Force or NASA, having to compromise with the rest of the Army about how they need money to build this new rocket, or they need money to work on this. We need this new launch pad. We need this new work area. I feel like that's an ever going on thing that'll continue to happen. You do have to use facts, and you do have to know what you're talking about. So
I think there's a lot of I actually don't know if this is a big thing, but I feel as though in a lot of places it is, where people kind of question the value of scientific study. And I think that's another big debate piece between people, is that they're like, why do we study this stuff? Why does it matter? And that's a big thing that people argue about a lot. And it does
Yeah.
matter because it is, you know, the next frontier. That is where we'll go once our planet isn't viable anymore. That's where we will, you know, continue to expand. And so it's very important to understand, you know, science and continue to work towards that.
Exactly. I know Mark Rober did a video about the importance of NASA's government budget, and they're saying, you know, they're getting so much money. Why don't we have enough problems on Earth? Why look at Mars? But I think that's such a, you know, invalid statement to say, because humans are meant to explore, man. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So we just gotta go to Mars. Like, what do you think about Mars?
I think that that is our next option for a planet. That is, you know, I think that will be our next home, is Mars. Mainly because, like, there's so much research already going to it that, you know, why would we start someplace new? However, so terraforming is another big topic with Mars. I saw somewhere that there were like some people that figured that it was a bad idea to terraform Mars. And I didn't fully read the article there, but I can see how it could possibly be kind of useless to go about it that way. And because, you know, that would take a very long time where we could possibly, you know, be colonizing all sorts of other places. But I think Mars is definitely the next place we're going to be going.
Yes. What about like the first people kind of about getting there? Do you think we should do the nice and slow and steady, have it, you know, already built and just humans come there? Or do we just send people there and back? What are your thoughts on like actually like getting there?
There's a lot of varying opinions. You have the people that are saying that, you know, oh, you'll go there and then you just never come back, you know, that's your home now. And then you have people that, you know, want to send, you know, 5-year missions back and forth. And I think that personally, in my opinion on this, is that, you know, build something there, you know, have rovers or whatever, build a small habitat, and then you launch, send people there, and then they live there for a while, and then they at least have the option to come back. Because I feel as though psychologically, if you were just leaving Earth forever, the only place you knew, you would be screwed up.
A lot of astronauts actually, when they come back to Earth, actually have like a really hard time with living on Earth, because they're like, all of these problems are so irrelevant. I've seen the weather patterns. Why do you think that McDonald's not being able to give you ice cream one day is the end of the world? You know, it's I feel like that's such an ironic thing, and that's why most of them go back. But
That's true.
I 100% agree with you on Mars.
Slowly. I think when you leave the Earth, or even like because I know that I stayed away from the news for a very long time, and going back to it, I noticed how can't speak today, how things that that pop up on the news that don't even matter. Or even then, I start looking into it, and they're just name calling each other, and just, it's like, why are we focusing our whole, like, so many people are getting anxiety and stuff by just focusing on that.
You gain perspective. You gain perspective when you take a step back. But and I think that's a big thing about like going off to space. I mean, like you said, Savannah, you realize that a lot of these problems are useless and don't mean anything. But at the same time, you know, you go off to Mars, you're never going back to Earth again. And you're like, you can't stand in the rain anymore. You can't, you know, go outside and breathe fresh air. You know, you're not going to be able to go get your favorite burger at the burger place. And I mean, it's little things that I think would really hurt people.
That is, wow, I didn't think of that. That's a really good point. I agree with you on like slowly sending people there, kind of, and them having the option to come back too. Like, I like that idea of kind of like, I wouldn't want to send the entire population there to start with. That's a horrendous idea.
I think that it would be best to start out as having like a lab there, and starting in kind of starting building up a lab there first and kind of doing all of our research there before we send humans there permanently, because we don't want to send them there just to fail. That's
Oh yeah.
it,
I don't
that
think
would
it
be
would.
inhumane in my opinion. I think
I
we
don't
should have.
think it
Sorry.
would start as a. Sorry, I'm interrupting. I don't think it would start as a like just a new civilization immediately. I think it would start as, just scientists going there to study the area, and then eventually, as people, needed to find new places to live, they would be sent to Mars, where they would live as citizens, civilians. They wouldn't necessarily be, scientists working in a lab all day. They would be the people that, continue building. They'd be the people that continue to, run stores and stuff. And that's how things would build. But I think it would first start off as scientists going there to study things and build, bigger areas than just the things that rovers could complete.
I agree with that. I feel like there's a certain amount of knowledge that we can get from being outside, and but there's a lot more that we could get to know from going there. And hopping into things is definitely not going to be the answer. I think we've learned that, just going straight for something hasn't always worked out, especially for America. So taking things slow, I think, is going to be the best option. But getting there, I'm really excited for.
Yeah, that's going to be a momentous occasion in history.
I mean, wow, that's
like
so
I already
cool.
think that when we did the our last launch was quite monumental in my opinion, because
oh yeah, that was big.
Thinking back before these past space shuttles like the Challenger, for a while everyone that we launched went into some sort of tragedy, and that we finally had a successful one with the SpaceX Dragon.
I think what's also really cool is now we have these private private launchers who are developing their own things, and there are not laws to that currently. And I hope that they abuse that privilege to an extent, but definitely make the most of it. And I know I am so excited to see what SpaceX is doing. I'm excited to see Space Force start to become a reality and start to see how that's going to work out.
I think private companies are definitely the future of space travel and, just learning about the universe, because the government programs can only go so far. They can only get so much funding. They can only, do so much without getting, ridicule from the public, or, funding getting cut in the middle of a big project. And so private companies that can fund themselves are definitely going to be advancing further.
I think it's really cool thinking back on our pretty much real life Tony Stark, Elon Musk, how he, not only because he's funding himself, but he's finding shortcuts in there and making things that cost NASA billions of dollars. He's been able to find cheaper ways of going about it.
I mean, they used to say that we'd never be able to reuse a rocket, and here we are being able to reuse entire stages of rockets.
Yeah. I remember Brandon talking about that as his project in class on how it used to be pretty much the closest thing that we could how he explained it is, if we took an airplane and every time we flew an airplane we had to throw it away.
Yeah, it's so expensive doing that too. Like, it doesn't make too much sense on a financial standpoint to just throw it away, whereas now with SpaceX you can reuse the entire first stage, and you don't even have to throw a new coat of paint on it. You just do a quick checkup to make sure it's gonna work, and then you can go and launch it again.
Dust it off right before and you're good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that I think the government has a lot to worry about, rather than certain elements of things that they are trying to work on. And I know it's really hard to get funding and get enough money, and I know they have to save up over years, but having a private investor or a private company do this is, I think it's really it's gonna do a lot more for America with advancing technologically, which I think is gonna be really cool. And I like how the government was actually able to collab with SpaceX on this, letting them use the base in the launch pad. So that I was really glad to see that they could get along on that initial standpoint. I think they really want to. So that I was really happy with that. Go Elon.
Yeah, I think that the private companies like Blue Origin and SpaceX and the many, many others, I think that with government funding that helps them move forward, they will definitely just excel past NASA at some point. Like NASA might even be slightly irrelevant, just given that they can move stuff so much faster, they can get stuff done so much faster. Like SpaceX, they've launched so many more rockets in the past several years compared to NASA, which takes forever for them to do anything.
It's true.
Yeah. Man, that's so cool though. Like to be able to like, I don't know, just I think private investors and like private companies launching their own things is so cool. Especially Elon, like he's such a cool guy and he knows a lot and he's doing a lot. And for him to also be able to do SpaceX, Tesla, the Boring Company, I mean, he's really blowing my mind out here. And he just launched a rocket. I mean, that is just so cool. I mean, I'm really excited to like see what else he does and like what else he's able to work on within just like the next 5 years. It's just, I feel like it's gonna be mind blowing.
That was the first rocket that was the first rocket launched with humans on American soil since the shuttle program, which is just crazy that we got to see that.
And like the shuttle program, in my opinion, compared to SpaceX program has just done so much for with continuing on and moving forward, because I think it's really cool that after the shuttle program not doing very well, that the SpaceX program went ahead and was successful, and that the fact that we're going to be reusing that exact rocket, reusing the engine in that rocket.
I'm gonna warn you, we got 10 minutes left on our timer.
All right.
We can close it up here. We went over 20. So we can close up here. Any final thoughts on anything really? Like this is such a brilliant, awesome podcast episode. This is just amazing. Thank you so much, Emma. Like,
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
oh my gosh. Any final thoughts on Elon, reusability, Mars?
I just think that, we need to continue working towards, learning more about space and about how to continue expanding out there. And we just need to keep working towards that, because that is our future. And that's where the human race is headed.
Awesome. All right, we'll close it up there. Huge thank you to Emma again.
Thank you, Emma.
Like,
You're welcome.
comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.